I see how most other people read the questions, and I think to myself, man, if I read the questions that way, I would have lost a couple hundred points on the GMAT. Hey, this is Avi Gutman with another Ask Me Anything event brought to you by quantreasoning.com. I invite you to join me live next time. We do this every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and you can attend for free by starting your free trial at quantreasoning.com. What is a good place to pause here? I don't know that I have an interesting inference to make here. I guess the only thing you might want to do there is subtract one from the other to find out how much you're left with after you've paid the tax. But we don't like to make inferences that require computation. This would be an inference that I would choose to not do and think about maybe doing later if I need to. It's too computational for the GMAT, having to subtract 437,000 from 1.35 million. I might have to do that, but it's unlikely. And if I do have to do it later, then I can always do it later. So I wouldn't actually make an inference there. But I would pause again at the comma and do what? What's some work that you think we should do at this point? So let's break this down to smaller steps. They're talking here about this amount in the context of this amount. So that's where JD got his $100,000. The difference between these two amounts, in other words, the excess that they're talking about. You see the word excess? What does that excess stand for? It stands for $100,000. And we are talking here about 43% of that excess. So what's 43% of 100,000? And just in case that's not easy for anyone, you can use the trick of reducing a percent symbol with two zeros. So you get 43 times 1,000, which is $43,000. And that's on top of what? The 437,000. We have 437,000 plus what? Plus 43,000. Do you think I should keep reading the question now or what? Or should I just keep reading?
No, add them.
Aha. And why are we adding them? Because of the word plus. Okay, so let's add these two numbers. To add them, it might be easier if I momentarily ignore the zeros, because they both have three zeros. What's 437? I think a lot of people would make a mistake here. 437 plus 43. If you do tend to make a mistake when adding such numbers, use a number line. Here's the number 437. I want to add 43 to it, but I don't have to add 43 all at once. I can just add 3 first and then add another 40. So adding 3 gets me to 440, and adding another 40 gets me to 480. So we did a lot of work already, but we now know that federal estate tax is $480,000. And now I'm ready to keep reading. Comma, then the federal tax due, which we know already is 480,000, is approximately, that's an important word, approximately what percent of the value of the estate, which we know was 1.35 million. So we want to know what percent approximately is this out of this. And let's reduce 4 zeros and rewrite it as 48 out of 135. The presence of the word approximately means that I shouldn't have to work very hard at this point. So I'll look at the answer choices. It's certainly not 50% because what's half of 135? That's 67.5. And we're looking at only 48 out of 135. So it's certainly not 50%. Could it be as little as 30%? Can anyone think of a fast way to find 30% of 135? What would you do if you really, really needed to find out what's 30% of 135? I would reduce the 0 with a percent symbol and stick a decimal there, because I need to reduce 2 zeros altogether. So 3 times 13.5. Well, 3 times 13 is 39, and 3 times half is 1.5. It would be 40.5. It doesn't have to take long to find what is 30% of 135. So it's not A either, because we have 48, not 40 and a half. I want to open this up to all of you. How would you proceed from here? Once you've established it's neither 30 nor 50, because 50% of 135 is 67.5 and 30% is 40.5, and we want approximately 48, what would you do from here? So if I see that the total difference between these two is 27, the halfway mark would be 13 and a half, 54, and we wanted 48, so that's one way to finish it off. But there are a lot of good ways to finish this off. Another good way might be to say, look, 1/3 of 135 is like 1/3 of 120 plus 15. So 40 plus 5 is 45. And we wanted 48. So based on that, the answer is going to be just slightly more than 1/3. And you pick B. That's fine as well. A lot of good ways to finish this off. And I wonder if one of the... I think there are two big takeaways from this question. Number one is the importance of pausing to make inferences as you're going, as you're reading the question, because I think it was very important that by the time we got here to the word then, by the time we got there, we already knew exactly what the federal tax due is. Can you imagine if we had gotten to the question mark first and then started trying to figure out what the total federal tax due is? It really helped that we already had that number before we got there. I think that's the most important takeaway. I think the second takeaway is with percentages, reducing the percent symbol with 2 zeros is a great way to speed up when working with percents. Yeah, you're right, Abhishek, and I'll just tell you here that for many years I've thought, and I still think, the single biggest difference between how I do GMAT questions and how most of my students do GMAT questions, in other words, the single most important thing that I do differently is pausing and inferring. Pausing every step of the way and making an inference is the single most important thing driving my success on standardized tests. I see how most other people read the questions and I think to myself, man, if I read the questions that way, I would have lost a couple 100 points on the GMAT if I read questions that way. And I always say this to students, it's not that I was born with a special ability. I'm not a superhero. I'm not smarter than anyone else. I just have a better approach to these questions. I'm never in a rush, because I didn't used to be so great at standardized tests, especially verbal reasoning, which I would say that I've mastered, but I used to be quite bad at verbal reasoning. I will admit that quantitative reasoning I always had a knack for, but this approach of really taking my time to digest what it is that I'm reading, that's really how I mastered critical reasoning. That's how I did well on the LSAT. If you had told me as a teenager or even as a young adult, if you had told me that one day I'll score 99th percentile on the LSAT and become an LSAT teacher, I would have said you're crazy. There was no way. I was terrible at verbal reasoning. But slowing down my reading and pausing to digest and think deeply about what it is that they're telling me and making inferences along the way, that's the single biggest difference between my approach and most people's approach. So I can't emphasize that enough. If you found this video useful, go to quantreasoning.com for a lot more where that came from. You should also click that like button and let me know in the comments below what you'd like me to make future videos about. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and do that and click that bell below so you get notified about future videos. See you next time.